Hey everyone, welcome to this full moon Sidereal Astrology forecast for the full moon on Friday, January 6th, 2023. All right, so we have a full moon in Gemini the Twins. If you're expecting me to say Cancer just then, be sure to check out the link down below for more information. We are using the visible sky on this channel called True Sidereal Astrology, and it does change the signs from mainstream astrology. All right, so Gemini the Twins, it's all about reconnecting with our synergistic side. Gemini is all about synergizing. Now, this can be, of course, synergizing internally, which is very much about thinking, using our practical minds, synthesizing information, but also externally as well. The Twins is all about connecting maybe a little bit socially, a bit of communication, maybe our peers, neighbors, siblings, in this kind of more sociable or willing to learn, willing to communicate and exchange type of energy. So great to reconnect with this side of ourselves. We have the Sun and the ruler of Gemini, Mercury, who is retrograde, but they're in Sagittarius. And so it's been, in a yearly sense, right now, a good time to expand our horizons, right? This time of the year, Sagittarius, good to open our horizons, expand our mental and literal horizons. But Gemini, being opposite that, is all about grounding it, making it more practical, more tangible. And of course, with the Mercury retrograde, just being flexible in this whole process. All right, so the full moon will be opposite that Mercury retrograde. It is going to be trining Neptune, which can give us a bit of support for a bit of receptivity, a little bit of a willingness to go with the flow a bit. Connecting more with our soul can be a little bit easier with this. There is a sextile to Uranus. Nothing major, but maybe just a willingness to get outside that comfort zone, mix things up a little bit, and a square to Chiron, which could be good to, on some level, challenge ourselves to maybe do some healing this month, but nothing major with that. Just maybe some inhibitions or wounds that could come up that by connecting with that synergistic side of ourselves can be quite healing and therapeutic. All right, so let's go and take a look at all of this here in more detail when we return. Alrighty, so here is the chart for the full moon. So again, this will be Friday, January 6th of 2023, and the exact time will be around 1630 Eastern Time of the Americas, or 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time of the Americas. Now that depends on where you are geographically, but for all intents and purposes, it is going to be for all of us in the world around the days surrounding this, Friday, January 6th. And as you can see here, we are using the uneven constellations as they visibly appear in the sky. So in mainstream astrology, everything's an even 30 degrees, even other forms of sidereal, and so this does take away from the visible sky. So we're using the visible sky on this channel called True Sidereal Astrology, and if you are new to this or you do know some of the sign placements are different, definitely check out that link down below for more information. All right, so full moon is the status check time of the lunar month. It is the heightened energy of the lunar month, suggesting that about 2 weeks ago, we started the new energy. At that time, we were just building momentum, just slowly getting things moving, but now we are at the apex of that sort of energy or really awareness or outer consciousness realm. And so it's a great time to cultivate that outer consciousness in the sense of doing a status check. Full moons are a great time to see how things have been going the past 2 weeks and how perhaps we can make some shifts and changes to continue the next 2 weeks of the lunar cycle. Now, this also works in a solar cycle as well. 6 months ago, we had the new moon in Gemini. And so we could even be doing a status check on the past 6 months in terms of how the synergistic side of ourselves is going. But more immediately, this lunar month, this past 2 weeks, making shifts and changes from that awareness to further develop the lunar cycle. So Gemini the Twins, it's all about getting into that synergistic side, exchanging, synthesizing, and internally this is very representative of knowledge, of gaining information, and cultivating those qualities like curiosity, being interested, willing to learn, willing to kind of, figure things out and see how things can be applied practically and tangibly. Externally, this is a great time of doing that same thing, but of course a little bit more socially, being an air sign. And so it's a good time of perhaps connecting with the town or the community a little bit, maybe neighbors, our peers, whoever we see on a day-to-day basis, those of equal status where we see eye to eye with others, and of course also siblings, which are also of equal status as well. So great to get into that kind of sociable energy in the sense of, again, willing to learn, right? Being curious, interested, willing to exchange, right? And communicate. It's a great time of anything involving any form of communication, even non-verbal, like maybe writing or things of this nature. So good time to get into that left brain. It's about practical, how things could be applied tangibly, practically in our day-to-day life, and figuring it out, right? Being interested, synthesizing the information, putting things into concepts, learning. It's a great time of learning in general, especially if it can, again, be applied practically, self-study, knowledge, more technical forms of study or skills, right? This kind of thing. And of course, developing our communication skills is also a great time for this as well. So status check, how is this side of ourselves going, that synergistic side, and how can we further implement it? Because this part of the year does have that Sagittarius energy. Sagittarius being the opposite of Gemini, we could say is more of the right brain. Sagittarius is more of the creative side in the sense of possibilities, potentials, theories, philosophies, more quote-unquote higher things like the meaning of life, like looking at things from a broader view. Astrology is a good example, looking at things from a big picture view. But of course, the best kinds of philosophies, astrology, is grounding it, making it practical. And that's where Gemini can take this higher theoretical area of Sagittarius and actually make it tangible and practical. And so this is a fantastic way of working with the Gemini-Sagittarius polarity, is while continuing to focus, and with Mercury here, think about things from a higher perspective and be open-minded and be adventurous with the mind. How can we take all this theoretical, abstract stuff and make it into something, tangible or communicated or practical, right? And so it's all in all a good time to balance that right and left brain, let's say, the abstract and the practical mind, and anything that is about bridging the gap between the two, melding the two together is fantastic, right? And that's the best way of learning, is when we are open-minded, and that's the best time to be, open-minded and gain all this higher knowledge if we're going to apply it practically in our life. So Gemini, Sagittarius opposition is a great way of doing this. Now, of course, Mercury is retrograde, so it's just a good reminder that until Mercury goes direct next week, it is a good time to still be flexible right now. He's not going to go direct next week, the following week. Okay, so we still have quite a bit of time here for that Mercury retrograde. And so it's a good time to still be flexible, all right, these coming weeks. And in this case, still be, willing to learn in the sense of trying different things, learning about different things, approaching things differently than we normally do, maybe going back and re-editing or redoing things that maybe involve some of this mental or communicative process, right? This is very important because Mercury is the ruler of Gemini, suggesting that the Gemini energy right now is in retrograde, with Mercury retrograde at the moment, okay? But it's a great time to do things during retrogrades. Just be flexible because things do change. And again, it's more of a learning and reworking sort of process. All right, so that's the most important things with this full moon. There are the aspects. We do have the trine up to Neptune in Pisces. So it's nice to see a little bit of support from another very abstract planet, more kind of right brain energy of Neptune, which is about essentially connecting more with our soul, especially in Pisces like this. And so it's a good reminder that while it's great to be learning and using our minds and expanding our horizons and all this mentally, to also be checking in with our soul and being present and being willing to listen to that soul while there's a lot of that mental energy going on. So great time to connect here, but we're likely supported to do so. It's likely much easier. We could say we do have a harmony between the deeper emotions or the soul and our practical minds, right? And just the mind in general, with the harmonies to both Gemini and Sagittarius. All right, so nice to see that receptive energy supporting things like going with the flow, like spirituality, like creativity, imagination, sensitivity, emotional connection, things like this. Now, there's also a minor aspect. Now we're really getting to the minor aspects with them, with this full moon, but a sextile up to Uranus is nice to see. And so here, just a little bit of support to kind of mix things up a little bit, have some new and different experiences, shake things up, get outside of our comfort zone, right? This kind of thing. Good time to, again, very supportive to have this kind of experimental energy with what is kind of a very experimental kind of full moon, as you can see by the descriptions of Mercury retrograde and just Gemini in general, being also an air energy like Uranus. Okay, and lastly, there is a square up to Chiron. Again, nothing major with this, but if there is anything that you do want to challenge yourself to do some healing with, maybe by learning, maybe by communicating, could end up being quite healing and therapeutic, especially because Mercury retrograde is in a square up to Chiron during this retrograde period. So it's been already a good time of doing this. So learning about stuff, or maybe, again, doing things that involve communication, can be very healing, therapeutic. Learning, studying, all of this, really good. And maybe even specifically about healing could be another way of utilizing it, of course. So just something to challenge ourselves with. It's the only square with the full moon, so it's just good to challenge ourselves with anything. If you do notice a wound or inhibition coming up, kind of do that stuff in the face of those wounds, or again, intentionally maybe do some of that healing energy is fantastic. And that's going to be likely ongoing throughout the remainder, even after the Mercury retrograde, Mercury will then square up to Chiron one last time later this month. All right, everyone, so that is the full moon in a nutshell. Most importantly, status check, heightened energy of the lunar cycle. We have outer consciousness. In this sense, how can we cultivate some of that synergistic energy of Gemini? The willingness to learn, being interested, inquisitive, curious, both personally and interpersonally. It's a great way of working with it. Balancing that out with the free-spirited energies, of course, the right brain, being open-minded, being willing to expand our horizons mentally, and implementing the two, right? The abstract mind and the practical mind. Good to be flexible all in all with Mercury retrograde with all of this and relearning. We do have trine up to Neptune, suggesting an easier energy to go with the flow a little bit, or a little bit presently. A little bit of support for shaking things up and getting outside the comfort zone with Uranus, and perhaps something to challenge ourselves with on the healing realm with the square up to Chiron. All right, so everyone have a fantastic full moon. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to click the like button if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you're not yet signed up for MTZ Insiders, it is a free newsletter. We do get these videos released first before YouTube. There's a link to sign up for that down below. But again, have a great full moon, and I'll see you all next time for the next astrology forecast. Take care.